Hello and welcome to the Soul Line Self Care Podcast. And how are you today, Sophie?
Thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's such an honor to be here and to be invited. And I always think with podcasts you have, which you've set up, it's such beautiful work, and you do all the work, and I'm allowed to come and swan in and be a guest, and it's just such an honor. So thank you ever so much. And yeah, I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to get to meet all the people that I get to meet. And you're such a ray of sunshine. Your face just lights up the screen. So it's such a pleasure
Oh,
to be with you today. So to get
thank you.
started, if you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and if you're comfortable sharing your journey of how you got into doing the work that you do.
Yes. So my name's Sophie Runciman, and I'm English originally, as you can probably hear. And I've spent most of my life living in either England or Germany, and I grew up bilingual. So we moved to Germany when I was 10, the second time, and that's when I went to a German school and talked English at
Cool.
home with my family, but just had this back and forth.
Hmm.
Um, and really, I think this back and forth and kind of in a way of being between chairs, of how you can be in between things, neither wholly in one country nor wholly in the other. That's really marked my life in general. Yeah, it leaves marks, which
Yeah,
is just an interesting observation of being able to look back over decades of my life and knowing that that really was a very unusual way of being in the 80s. There weren't that many people moving around like there are today.
that's
And
true.
so yeah, and so I basically grew up kind of half German, half English, moved to England to go to university, and I'd had a very like a spiritual background, not because my parents were that interested in spirituality and religion, but I was. And
Hmm.
so that was well, from very early on till about 20. Then I went to university and got just many different interests, many different distractions. And then I went into the corporate world and kind of just started climbing the ladder. And I
Hmm.
spoke, three languages fluently and just was very motivated, always striving to do things well, which was my background, which I think a lot of women have. A lot of
Yes.
women really want to do well for themselves. They want to look good. They want to, do things right. And so I had this corporate identity, and I hadn't realized how much energy, focus, and time was going into my work and not really into my life.
Hmm.
And so I often used to look around the office at my colleagues and think, wow, look at us. We're all typing frantically into our keyboards. Like, what are we doing? And I did
Yes.
have these pangs of probably really seeing clearly, but they were just pangs. And I just push them aside and continue working and
Hmm.
rushing. And there's always rushing. And so I reached about my mid to late 30s, and I had this moment of, come on, when I'm 50, like when I'm really old,
Yeah.
which now I laugh at because I,
Yeah, I know.
okay.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's no way I'll have the energy when I'm that old to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I better maybe move into something which is more meaningful, which, maybe that away from corporate stuff. And I trained to become a teacher. So I went
Oh,
to
that's
Oxford.
cool.
Yeah, I was invited to, was allowed to study at Oxford for the year and do my training. And so that was wonderful moving back to England for a while. And I did teach for a couple of years, only to realize it was even more frantic, even more fast-paced,
Can't
even more,
imagine.
and I think teachers, they're just, I mean,
Special.
incredible,
Yeah.
very special in the work
Yeah.
they do. And I always believe that to be a great teacher, you have to have that vocation.
Hmm.
And so while I loved many things about teaching, I didn't feel I had that vocation really, not in the school system as it is anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to leave again. And then I moved into the luxury sector. Like I got a job offered in a luxury company, which was international. I was in the sales department there, leading the sales team, selling beautiful products, really like works
Yeah.
of art, pens, jewelry, leatherware, watches. So it's really nice. It's all on the phone and
Yeah.
on online.
Yeah.
And little did I know that this was priming my brain for high ticket coaching,
Mm-hmm.
because, I wouldn't have necessarily known the connection between quality and high prices. But here I really learned to appreciate that brands and luxury, that there is a place for it. Because I used
Yeah.
to kind of look down a little bit. Because I used to know people who'd be like sporting this name and it has to be this bag and this car. And I was like, oh, do brand names really matter? It's not important
Yeah.
to me. But then I actually realized I was a little bit ignorant about it.
Uh-huh.
And then experiencing the luxury brand was something quite pivotal for me. And I
Yeah.
so I was there for 5 years and really enjoyed it. Led a great team of international people, still working frantically, like
Yeah.
really frantically.
Yeah.
It's just kind of my trademark, but I had no idea. I was blind to it. I was just high achieving, doing my thing, but I wouldn't really have felt successful, even though from the outside, I think people looked in at me and said, wow, she's doing really well for herself. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a partner. I had no children, no family. My salary was okay, but it wasn't kind of up there.
Yeah.
So, there were things where I was kind of going, "Well, okay, I'm hitting 40 now. What is going on? What
Mm-hmm.
is happening? Why am I kind of not getting anywhere?" And meanwhile, people are passing by and they're setting up businesses, they're having 10 children and,
Yeah.
um, married three
If you
times.
if you
I'm
want
deeply
that kind of
mindfulness.
thing. Yeah.
Want that, right? That's right. I actually never did want that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's a different story. But
Yeah.
it's really this element of time and focus and energy and also really thinking I was doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I was in my early 40s. I was in the luxury company, and I discovered NLP through a sales course and discovered NLP. Thought, wow, I need to go down this route. And it was really more intuitive. It was just this feeling, I have to do this. And I did a qualification with this German company in German. And while I was there, I met two other people, a man and a woman, who ended up falling in love with each other and becoming a couple. And we
Uh-huh.
met together on this course. And about a year and a half later, they called me and said, Sophie, we need someone to help us with our operations. We're making 100,000 a month now. It's growing. And would you come and set it up for us? And
Oh
I had a
wow.
little bit set up, but I was kind of helping them move it forward. And their goal was to make $1 million a month
Wow.
turnover.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it was big. And so I decided at the age of, I think I must have been about 42, to leave my corporate career and jump into the coaching world and follow my intuition. Although a lot of people said, wow, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is not the time to be leaving a corporate job. And there were some people who were kind of just go, wow, you're brave, you're brave. But no one, was really there kind of go, wow, that's amazing. You have to do it. But I just had this feeling that it
Mm-hmm.
would be amazing. And
Yeah.
this is where I noticed for the first time. So basically, I was supporting coaches, so that maybe 40, 50 coaches at that time. I
Mm-hmm.
was the coach to help them through any blocks while they were setting up their online businesses and just do the operational side in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I discovered that I loved coaches. I loved coaching. I loved the being surrounded by people who are wanting to make the world a better place,
Mm-hmm.
following their own intuition more, following their own
They have like a
desire to have an
purpose.
impact. Exactly, with a
Yeah.
purpose.
It's
Exactly.
inspiring.
That was really inspiring to me as well. And that's where I first had the experience of having more time and it's not necessarily time. I worked hard still, but I was also doing more meditations and just taking time away from just focusing on work and
Hmm.
realizing that there's actually a big part of me that wasn't getting any attention. And so this was really key. And one reason why I'm so grateful I left the corporate world, because I
Yeah.
think had I not, I'd have probably reached retirement age before having this experience.
Hmm.
Really, it's the most important thing in the world is to have focus on yourself and know what drives you and what your purpose is and just have
Yeah.
moments to connect as well.
You know what I think is really cool about your journey is that even though like the way, what you're talking about right now, you almost sound like, oh, I wish I would have woken up sooner. But at the
Yeah.
same time, when you look at your journey from corporate to teaching
Oh
and then
gosh.
high ticket sales, it's almost like it was preparing you for that moment because
Yeah.
those tools like teaching the high ticket that luxury brand, like being able to like step into that and really know what it means, um was part of like your soul training, so to speak, to step into
Yes.
the role to help these coaches. So I think it's really kind of cool because when you look back in hindsight, everything played out perfectly, in your life.
Yes.
And I love it when you could hear someone's journey and kind of like see it see it all played
Yes.
out. And so you didn't really like completely like wake up until you stepped into that role, but there were like these little pieces that you kept seeing along the way, that you kept guiding yourself in that direction and taking those steps and putting yourself into like outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and
Yes.
really like I think it's just so cool. That's why I love hearing about people's journeys. And I just feel so lucky being able to talk to people like you and look at all the commonalities between women. I do talk to some men, but I generally speak to a lot more women.
Yeah,
And
me too.
yeah, and it's like all over the world from all types of different circumstances and different countries and different cultures. It's always this, it's not the same exact journey, but it's very similar,
Yes. How
and
interesting.
it's very interesting. And I absolutely love it. And what you said about working with the coaches, just being in an environment where almost every person that is around you has some kind of a very strong purpose. So I meet a lot of coaches too. I don't work with a lot of coaches, but I meet a lot of coaches through the podcast. And they all have a strong purpose. There's something that brought them to where they're at. And it's always super powerful and inspiring to listen to them. Not to say that people in corporate aren't inspiring. I'm sure like people in corporate have dreams and goals, but they're not really stepping into them when they're at that place of work, so you're not really
Yes.
seeing that side of them,
It's unusual. It's unusual. And I really think the time aspect is huge because
Hmm.
now my work is in this field, so my focus is automatically there. But
Yeah.
before, my focus was on getting sales numbers in for the month and seeing my team had what they needed and thinking
Hmm.
about presentations I had to do. Is very different. And there was
Yeah.
pressure from the outside. And now
Yes.
there's different pressures, but the field in general is is my field and I determine what it is. And
Yeah.
I just love the freedom. And I think entrepreneurs like us and in general just have that high desire for freedom.
Yes, that's the key. Like whenever I do a lot of work with my clients where I'm like, let's figure out what your why is. Like, why do you want this? Because the stronger your why is, the more success you'll have in reaching that goal or
Mm.
that dream. And whenever I do my own why, like, why do I want this? Like when I'm really like contemplating what direction I want to go into, it's always ends up pointing towards freedom in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Hmm.
And I think that everybody deserves to be free. And so when you look at the corporate world, I think part of what keeps people trapped into that world is the busyness because they don't
Yeah.
have enough time to slow down and really think to themselves, wow, what am I doing? Like, am I doing anything that makes me happy? Am I doing anything that really like is part of my purpose, why I want to be here? And some people do it for so long that they wake up one day and then they don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
They start to
Yeah.
question, what am I doing? Happens a lot in midlife. So it's
Mm,
like or something will happen, a divorce, a separation, a sickness, or whatever, something changes in their life, and they start to like really gain perspective on like what they're doing in their
yeah.
life. And so I think it's so cool when I meet people that have gone through this process. And I've noticed that recently, um, more and more people are just kind of like waking up to this younger. And I like that, because I
Yeah.
would say it took me, I don't know, I've always, before I was a coach, I was a realtor, right? So I,
Oh,
I
yeah.
was self-employed, and I've always been that type of person. I've always been like, what kind of business can I start? I can't even count on two hands how many business ideas I've had. And so I've always been that type of person. But until I got out of real estate, really, because real estate's very busy. I didn't feel like an entrepreneur when I was in real estate. I didn't
Mm,
feel like an entrepreneur. I didn't feel
that's
like I had like the
interesting.
freedom until I started moving into my own business. So
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you do, because you work a lot in energetics, and I think that's so important, because I think really this is what we're moving into now. I think it's very important. Um, all the aspects of coaching are very important, but I think energetics is left out sometimes in some coaching,
Yes.
and I think it's a huge portion of it. So talk a little bit
Mm.
about that.
Yeah, so I love the topic of energy because really everything is energy.
Hmm.
Everything, the world, the whole world, you and me, everything. And once I grasped this notion of what the energy is the basis of everything, I just realized that, with us also being able to tap into certain frequencies, we do it whether we know we're doing it or not. It makes so much sense to become aware of which frequency we're tapped into, and being able to change that. And there's a book called Levels of Energy. I've
Hmm.
forgotten the levels of. I don't. Unfortunately, I have the book in front of me, but not his name.
Okay, that's
But
okay.
it's
I'll
there
look
are
it up.
lots of books with that name. So, but
Yeah.
this is a
Okay.
specific author. I can send it later. But
Okay.
basically, really all it's about is that he has a concept where he shows. I think it's from 0 to 1,000, and what it means to be at each number. What emotion is linked
Yes.
to it. I think
Hmm.
a lot of people listening to your podcast will have already heard of this.
Yes.
I can
Yeah, I can't
imagine.
I can't remember what it's called, but I think I was introduced through, oh, I can't remember who it was through. But yeah, it's like at the bottom, like the lowest energy is like shame, I think, or something like that. And then at the
Right,
top
yes.
is, I don't know, joy, love. I can't remember which one's at the top, but there's like,
Unconditional love, maybe.
yeah, and there's so many in between. And I actually use that in one of my programs, because, it's really good to explain to people that you can't go from like the lowest shame to the top just like that.
Right,
It's
yes.
better to focus on easing your way up.
Right,
So I
yes.
think it's a
And
really cool way to think about it.
I agree. And I love this as well. And I've just remembered his name. It's Dodson.
So,
Dodson, Dodson.
okay.
And
Gonna look that up.
what I loved about what he said, what he wrote, is that it's not necessarily aiming to be high up. It's just,
Hmm.
looking at where you want to be. And some people can be really academic and very focused, and that's quite a high level. But
Hmm.
they actually need to go down a little bit to let their hair down and have some fun and live a bit. So
Makes
it really,
sense.
doesn't it? And if you're depressed, then anger is actually a great thing. So
Yeah.
so
Yes.
I really like this non-judgment
Hmm.
aspect, and that's a very, very strong component of my work, which I never ever thought I'm going to go out there and be non-judgmental. I never thought that once, but it's this feedback I always get from every single person I encounter really is that
Hmm.
they felt very safe and very not judged, and so this is a huge part of my work. And
Yeah.
talking of energy, I also get feedback that my energy is very healing, very soothing,
It
calms
is,
people down.
yeah, like I said at the beginning, you're fairly lit up. You know, you could feel your energy immediately. Even though we're just talking on Zoom, it's really, you could feel that in another person when you're face to face with them. So yes.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And for me, it's a developing practice as well. You know, it's a developing awareness, which is getting stronger and stronger in myself.
Hmm.
And for me, it shows in my arms or my torso that it just all starts tingling, getting on fire, just this pins and needles feeling even.
Yes.
And I have it especially when I'm talking with somebody and they're trying to get clarity. And they're saying something which has truth. So it's really
Okay.
like my body is speaking, and
Hmm.
I can say, look, this is what I'm getting. And
Yeah.
so I'm not a very, I'm not very esoteric. I don't, I have a few crystals. I like my crystals, but they're more because they're pretty. I don't really know what they mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that.
And
I love
like something
crystals.
gives me joy. And I mean,
Hmm.
I love people who work with crystals, but it's not been my focus in my,
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I wouldn't call myself very woo-woo, and I don't even like that expression because it
Hmm.
feels like it's a bit belittling, and it's not at
I
all.
agree. Yeah.
Um, but I would say everything in life is spiritual. We're all connected, whether we know it or not. And with the work that we do, we can use energy just by being who we are.
Hmm.
And I do have a practice which I love doing. And at the same time, I have to confess that when I was first doing it, I was thinking, does this really work? Am I actually doing anything? Because you can't see it, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, clearing chakras. No, there are
Hmm.
7 chakra points, which I used to still do, but I haven't done it for a while. But when I do it with people, I clear them, throw
Hmm.
the bad energy out, let light in. And the feedback was just amazing that
Hmm.
people would be lying down. It's remote, but I'd get them to lie down and I'd get their feedback after half an hour. I'd send them mine and we'd just be on the same page. And then we'd
Hmm.
usually talk again the next day just to solidify things.
Yeah.
And so this was really something that through practicing it, I realized, wow, people really do feel it, that there really is something there.
Hmm.
And so I tend to be a little bit questioning, a little bit skeptical, but then over the years, I've just realized, yes, it really, there really is something to it.
Yeah.
Um, and so my work is energetic and healing, but that's kind of a side effect. It's not something I don't really go out and say I'm a healer, but
Yeah, I know
people
what
have
you mean.
told me that.
It
People said,
comes
"You're Sophie,
in.
you're a healer." Yeah, it
It
does.
comes
It's
into your
something.
practice.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And in a way, I think it's really beautiful when it happens that way because there's no ego involved.
Hmm.
It's just something you realize, there is this gift or this expression that wants to come through and be expressed in the world. And really,
Hmm.
this is what I help people do as well when I work with someone, is helping them express their voice, express what's in them, and bring it to the surface because for many people, it was the same on my own journey, and it still can be, is that I'm not really sure what's next. And for some people, by talking it through with someone who has this open, safe space and also has the knowledge,
Hmm.
it's not just anyone who's listening. It's someone who's actually from that field of
Hmm.
work, that there's this like a sounding board where you can get such clarity and get the feeling, the body sensation, oh yeah, this is it. And
Yeah.
then if you have your own business, and people tend to come to me when they have their own business, but I also have some corporate ladies,
Hmm.
but they really get this very strong feeling and certainty and conviction, this is it. And
Hmm.
then they can go out and sell at a higher price without feeling they're selling.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it because I would never be the sales trainer who says, that they say this and you say this and then they
Hmm.
say this. And it's not how it works for me because it's just so, so energetic in the whole conversation.
Yeah,
I hope this makes sense.
no, it makes total sense. Would you say, I'm not sure if you agree with this, but one of the things that just came up in my head while you were talking is that the more that you step in to being connected with your true self and like accepting that and allowing yourself to move through life feeling feelings, whether they're good feelings or bad feelings, would you say that that's when you really become so connected with yourself that you can start feeling these different energies and working with energetics? Because I feel like some people are just so disconnected, and they're playing a persona of what is expected of them in this world instead of just accepting who they are as they are and
Yes.
moving into that, whether it's good or bad, whether they're feeling good or bad, just completely feeling whatever's happening in that moment and
Yeah.
moving forward with that. I feel like the more I do that in my life, the more aligned everything feels and the more I notice those subtle energies.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
can
something
imagine.
is that something that you experience, or how do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
So I feel the person you described who's so disconnected, they have
Mhm.
no idea. They have no idea they're disconnected. You can
Yes,
see it
I was there.
observing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But in that moment, there's actually no consciousness about it. You just think this is the way life is.
Hmm.
And but a huge revelation for me was actually understanding what feelings are.
Hmm.
Because feelings, I kind of could always not always, but I learnt to verbalize them, to say what it is. But it
Hmm.
took me, it was like a huge aha moment when I realized that feelings are actually felt in the
Hmm.
body. You can
Yeah.
feel it somewhere, and
Yeah.
it comes through the body. And I also try and not label feelings as good or bad,
Hmm.
because all feelings are valid and
That's a good
can
point.
can move through you. And in a way, we're so blessed to even be on this planet, to be alive, and to be grateful for all feelings. I try
Hmm.
to remember this when I'm having a feeling that's not so pleasant. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, at least I'm feeling something, I'm alive. And
Yeah.
then it already shifts a little bit. And but it's not about pushing it away or anything. It's really about experiencing it, letting it through. And that then because basically emotions only last for 90 seconds. I
Yeah.
read this somewhere. There's research made that an emotion itself lasts 90 seconds and then it's done. What
Yeah.
we do as adults is that we think about it again and again and re-engage the feeling, but actually it in theory it wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we suppress it too, which also
for
prolongs it.
sure,
We
for
don't allow it.
sure.
But what you
Yeah,
just said was like a little bit of an aha moment for me, because it's like, yeah, and being like, it's like, I know this on some level, but then when you said it, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm thinking of feelings as bad and good and whatever.
right.
But when
Yeah.
you think of it in a non-judgmental way, it'll help you move forward. It would help you accept them and move through them a lot quicker. And
Yes.
so I would say that this is something that I could do maybe like 50% of the time. Like I'm not fully stepped into this, because sometimes I'm like, what is that feeling? Like I can't even name it. And if you can't name
Yeah.
it, I feel like it's almost like you're not fully like accepting it or stepping into it. It's like, where is that in my body? Where do I feel that? And I think it's like a process. So I have to like kind of walk myself through it sometimes, but sometimes I am just in it. I'm just really
Yeah,
connected.
me
So
too. Me too.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying I'm above this at all.
yeah,
It's just that, and I think the key is in these moments to remember that actually we have tools but also to live. I'm really not a proponent of immediately jumping into what can fix it and what can I do, because we also need to live without thinking, how am I doing this right?
yeah.
Because that's easy to fall into is, can I get this right? And some things just
Need to be.
need to be lived and not thought about.
I think there's a reason that we have these feelings that come up, and maybe there's a
Right.
purpose for them, and that trying to avoid or push down or whatever, all that does is cause all the issues that we're having, so to
Mm.
speak,
Yeah.
so like not allowing yourself to grieve or not allowing yourself to be sad because, um, I always call it toxic positivity, so it's
Yeah.
like thinking that in order to like manifest all the things in your life and bring good things into your life, you always have to be positive. But that's not
Yes.
true, because if you're blocking sadness and you're not allowing yourself to feel your feelings, that's just going to block everything,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's so important. I call it allowing the pity party. That's what I call it, allowing
Yeah,
sadness.
that's nice.
Yeah. And then I learned to do that. I don't know, it was a while ago, because I used to just, completely avoid anything like that. I don't have time to sit down and cry and feel sorry for myself. And then one day I was like, what if I just allow myself to have the pity party? What if I just say, okay, today is my pity party day. It's just funny because I was talking about this yesterday with another guest, so it's kind of weird, but it's like, what if I allow myself just this full day to cry, just feel bad about everything, and just allow myself to feel it.
Yeah.
And what I realized was that, my God, that you're once you're done, you're done, and then you move through it. But when
Yeah.
I would kind of suppress it, it would stick around for like the whole week
Yeah.
or so. And now I found that when I allow it, I move through it quicker. So I don't want to
Yeah.
spend the whole day having a pity party, maybe an hour, I don't need the whole day, because
Yeah.
I just allow it. So I was like, this was an interesting practice that I started years and years ago. And now it's just so easy, just allowing it,
Yeah. I
and
love what you're saying. And it's
yeah.
kind of part of self-acceptance.
Hmm.
And self-acceptance is so important. There are these words, we throw around like self-love and self-acceptance.
Hmm.
Um, what else do we have? Awareness, self-awareness. And
Yeah.
they're all key words in a way, but really what you're describing, that is the root of self-acceptance, is allowing it to happen, to
Hmm.
allowing it to be, and not judging yourself for it.
Yeah, and it feels so much better. You think it's going to feel
Yeah.
worse, but it feels so
Mm.
much better just allowing that. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, and I never thought of it that way as a self-acceptance. But yeah, exactly, because you're acknowledging it, really,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
the other me would have not acknowledged it and maybe beat myself up a little bit, like,
Oh, yes.
why are you so weak? Why you just move through it,
Yeah.
pull up your bootstraps, like all those things that people
Yeah, all
say.
those
Yeah,
the
all
things
those
we've been
terrible.
conditioned with.
Yes, exactly. So I want
That's
to
what,
take like this screwy turn. And
yeah.
because I told you before we started, like I was reading one of your posts, and I don't remember when it was from, because I like learning about a person before I kind of talk with them. And so I was like diving into your Instagram,
Mm.
and you talked about working with people who have repeating patterns. And I think this is very interesting, because I think a lot of people struggle with repeating patterns, including myself. But it wasn't until probably recently, maybe like in my 40s, that I even noticed I had patterns. And I
Yeah.
felt like noticing it was like the first step, because before that, I was just, kind of reacting constantly through life and going through the same processes over and over. And now I'm more mindful about it. And I'm like, okay, this is a pattern. What do I need to learn? What is this trying to teach me? How can I move forward better? So, um, what do you do when you work with women who have repeating patterns? Do they come to you after they've noticed the patterns, or do sometimes you help them notice the patterns?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's it's both.
Yeah.
Some women know they have patterns. I'd say the majority assume they have patterns. They know the term, they know that they probably have them, but they're really part of their blind spots. And
Yeah.
that's really a big thing that we look at. And how I like to explore the blind spots is by asking my clients what rules they set up for themselves. Like, what rules do they have?
Hmm.
And it's incredible. The rules that come up, it's like, I don't know, I'm only allowed to take a taxi twice a week. Or
Okay.
I'm allowed to go to a restaurant once a month, or just limits or rules where you kind of think, wow, that's so interesting. And they're usually very different from anything I might have because they're so personal.
Hmm.
Um, and that brings up a huge awareness of which areas of life are they actually restricting themselves. And
Interesting.
yeah, it really is interesting. And just this awareness alone can free up a lot because one thing is getting the rules clear and adding to them as we go on. And
Hmm.
then is allowing yourself to break the rule.
Okay.
So it's giving yourself permission to do something that's wildly different from how you'd normally allow yourself to be or how you'd normally act or
Yeah.
do or um and so that's one really fun part. It can be fun, it can also be very challenging and
Hmm.
difficult, but it's
Yeah, I could see
really
that.
yeah, and I like to make these things as fun as they can be because I really believe that life is meant to be enjoyed.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying enjoyment as in just lying around and you know
Yeah.
drinking wine or whatever. That's not
Yeah.
my point at all. But it's really it's enjoyed in the sense of seeing the beauty and doing things which are good for you and
Hmm.
challenging and then being proud of what you've done. That kind of enjoyment. And
Absolutely.
rules can be helpful, but there are so many rules which aren't. And by
Hmm.
seeding those out, which is I find best done with somebody else. It's because on your own you can kid yourself more. Um,
Absolutely. I feel like it's really hard to break out of patterns by yourself. I mean, you could
yeah,
become aware of them, I think, but breaking through them, you don't always see it. You just don't always see it. Like you said, it's a blind spot. And so having
yeah,
that other person help you move through it is like key. And it's so powerful.
yeah,
You did say something that I've been really, really focusing on. As a matter of fact, you know how like when you start the year and you're, thinking about your goals and your dreams and everything, I always think like, what is my like topic of the year, which is really cheesy, but I like to have like a focus. And so
yeah.
my focus this year was about really being intentional about having fun and bringing joy into my life
Mm.
because I could be quite serious, especially when it comes to my business. I'm not serious when I'm hanging out with my friends or my family, but when it comes to my business, I'm so serious, and I'm like, why don't I bring that part of my personality into my business where I could be more fun and start bringing more joy in? And it's really hard for me to break. I must have some rules.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
maybe you
so
do.
it's really hard for me to like bring that fun into the business. So one of the things I started doing was intentionally bringing joy into like all the parts of my life that I could think of. And so I'm like, naturally, this is going to overflow into my business at some point, and maybe it'll
Mm.
be easier for me. And so that was my focus this year. And one of the things that I'm starting to realize is, I work with a lot of women who are like looking for what's my purpose in life. They're feeling stuck, right? And one of the things I realized is that I feel like the purpose for all of us is just to enjoy our lives. It's the
Yeah,
purpose is joy, like
yeah,
and most people don't want to hear that, but it really, so it's different for everybody because what brings me joy might not bring another person, joy.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
love being in the garden. Some people might hate the bugs and the dirt, right? So it's like you have to figure out what it is that brings that all that joy into your life. And
yeah,
it could be a part of what you do for a living, which is absolutely fabulous. But usually it's not just that one thing. It's
yeah. And
usually
it can
not.
be really simple.
It
It can
could
be
be
so simple.
it could be so simple, like my joy is having, three kids and then raising those children. That's it.
Mm.
My joy is having my dog and going out in my garden, whatever it is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to be like this, like I'm going to solve world hunger, or, it doesn't have to be something like
Right.
that.
Yeah,
But I feel like it's overlooked quite often, this as our purpose, because there's so many like social expectations, and we've been kind of pre-programmed that we're supposed to work our butts off for like 40 or 50 years, and then we get like this small portion of our life to retire, if any of us can
yeah,
retire or enjoy our lives. And when you say that out loud, when you speak it out loud, it sounds absolutely cuckoo. It sounds crazy. Like I'm going to just spend my whole life working, doing something that I might not enjoy most of my time. I'm going to spend
yeah.
more time working than I do with my kids. Like it
Mhm.
sounds crazy when you say it out loud. And so I feel like people need to be more aware of
Yeah,
that so that they can start to refocus. And yeah, we all have to work. We're stuck in this system that we're in right now, right? We all have to work and make money, but how can we bring as much joy as possible? And I always say to people, it should really, your main focus should be joy. Like your
mhm.
work, if that's not your joy, that should be like background music.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's a necessity. You have to do it, but it's background music. The focus of your life should be your joy. And
yeah,
so I think that that's a hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their heads around.
yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I totally agree. And I think my mum really helped me with this a long
Oh,
time ago.
cool.
I must have been in my 30s. And there was a job I was just moaning about. I hate my job. I don't
Yeah.
know how I phrase it, but that's the kind of the tenor. And my mum said to me back then, um, you you won't, I don't know how she phrased it now, but it was, the message was, you won't find a new job if you're feeling this way about this job. Start
Hmm.
finding things that you enjoy in this job and start feeling better about it, and then you'll find another job.
What a nugget of information.
Really,
How
really
powerful.
so powerful. And it really transfers to so many different, like to all parts of life, I believe, whether it's your
Manifestation.
relationship or exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can really be going through a tough time with your partner, and if you try and focus on the things that you do love about him or
Hmm.
her, and just it changes, it shifts so much. And
Hmm.
so that was something that I learned a long time ago, and it's really helped me over the years.
Yeah,
And
that's so powerful. I love that. Yeah, what you focus on expands. So,
right,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
so hard not to focus on something when you're in some kind of a crisis. It's
yeah,
so hard
it's
to
so
focus on
hard.
the positive, but it really does work. And that's why gratitude practices are so powerful because
Yeah,
it really, you could start really small. You could be like, I'm grateful, that the sun came up today. I'm grateful, like things that are just going to happen no matter what. So if you're in like the worst possible spot in your life, you can still be grateful that the sun came up. You can still be grateful that you woke up today. You can be grateful that you
yeah,
have your body, even if it's not the completely healthy body, you have a body, you can move around, you're alive. So it's like you could
yeah,
start
it's
so
true.
small and work yourself up, because once you start focusing on all the positives, that's what your brain is going to automatically bring you closer to. And
Yeah.
so what a cool thing for your mom to say. Like I can't stress enough that the women that came before us have so much knowledge, and I feel like in the world today it's overlooked too
Yeah,
often.
yeah.
So I always like to emphasize, like, pay attention to the women that came before you because they know,
Mm.
and this in society, I feel like there's not a whole lot of value on, especially older women, but just the elders generations. And I feel like it should be the opposite. Like those are the people with the most knowledge, the most experience, and just listening to them, sometimes you'll get nuggets like that are just so important and so powerful. So like I
Yeah,
love that your mom did that for you. That's so
yeah.
cool. I love that.
And I have something else. My grandmother, she was coming up to her a passing, so a few days before she passed, and she was 91 when she passed.
Wow.
And she said to my mum, just before she left, she said, "Cecilia, enjoy life, enjoy your life." And
Yeah.
really, that was her message, and on her deathbed,
Yeah.
um, which
That
is what
says
we're
a lot.
talking about.
Yeah.
And she just knew
She
it in that
knew.
moment.
Hmm.
Maybe she already knew it before, but that's when she expressed it. And I just think, if you think about what might your last words be, what is the last message you want to pass on to the person you love most in this world? I
Hmm.
think it's really quite profound.
Yeah, I do too, because I would imagine, I don't really know what it feels like to be at that point in your life, but I would imagine that you have a lot of clarity, a lot,
Mm.
because there's nothing left. So there's nothing left but that clarity. And those words are so powerful. So I think we're gonna end the interview on that, on your grandmother's
Yeah.
last knowledge that she transferred onto your
Mm.
mom. Enjoy life. And so I'm going to encourage everybody that's listening today to enjoy their life and add little bits of joy into your life every single day. Start small. So like this morning, I always use this as an example. People are probably tired of me saying this, but one of my favorite things to do is have my coffee, sit in bed. I have this big picture window in front of my bed with my dog and just watch the sunrise. It's just what's like, it's just what's better than that? It's like so nice, so
It
present, you
sounds
know.
beautiful.
Do you have
Yeah.
a little small tidbit of a thing that you do that just makes you happy? That's just very simple.
Let me think.
Yeah.
Um,
You have time,
on the
no
spot.
rush. Yeah. Put you on the spot. It
Um,
just came up in my head. I'm sorry, but
It's beautiful.
yeah.
I tend to be very intuitive, just kind of on in the moment, but I must say I do love opening the balcony door here. I live on the outskirts of a city near the river, but I can see the river from here. And I do love opening the door and just breathing the first air of the day, you know.
Hmm.
That's something I do like to do. I don't do it every morning, but I appreciate this feeling of, this new day, fresh
Hmm.
air. It feels different somehow than the air in the evening.
Yeah. Oh,
It's fresh and
absolutely.
new and
Hmm.
um so that's I
That's
think
beautiful.
yeah, breathing. When I can, I go out and walk, but that's usually sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, and it really helps me when I do go out and just
Oh
brisk
my
walk.
God. Yeah, same. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Mm.
So how could people find you? Where do you hang out and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, what I'd love to do is to post my handles below maybe.
Yes, I would
But
definitely.
basically, thank you. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. On Facebook, my name is Sophie Claire, Claire with an
Okay.
I. And they're probably the best places to find me.
Okay.
Um, and then you can really, if you want to speak with me, just send me a message and we can have a quick meeting on Zoom.
I think I met you on Instagram and I did a session with you that was so beautiful and
Yes.
that's how we got connected. And so I would encourage you guys to reach out to Sophie because she's just a beautiful, beautiful soul all around. And I want to thank you for just sharing your experience, sharing your story, and sharing what you do. And I want to thank you for the work that you do in the world because it just makes the world a better place. So thanks for being a guest today.
Thank you so much, Tina. It's been wonderful. Thank you.